welcome back to the Beauty Topics podcast. I'm your host, Chantel, and I have an incredible guest on my podcast with me today. I am so honored right now. I have an incredible woman. She is a literal queen.
Thank you.
She is a mom, a wifey, a mompreneur, a business owner. She is just a survivor of so many things, and I'm just so proud to know you. And I adore you so much. And I just want to welcome the lovely Sarah Campbell. Hey, Sarah.
Thank you, Chantal. Thank you so much for having me. I was truly so blown away when you asked me to be on your podcast. So the honor is truly all mine. So much.
Well, I'm just so glad to have you here now that you got a little time. She made some arrangements, okay, for the kiddos so that she could be here for me. So I have to jump into it before the family comes bum rushing back in the door.
Which they do, that they do. But they know I said, Mommy has an interview. So we're going to, if the door is shut, don't come in. They know. So.
Well, right now, I kind of feel like we're in the midst of Countdown to the Crown. Sarah Campbell is Mrs. Delaware International, and she's going to be competing very soon, and I will see her there. I cannot wait to touch your beautiful face, so I'm so excited. But your journey to get to this point has been filled with a lot of love, but also bumps in the road, and I really want to touch on just who you are as a person and talk about your platform and just your why. So why don't you just jump in and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, my name is Sarah, and I am married to my amazing husband, Justin. We've been together 19 years this July, married 13. It'll be 14 in October. I have two beautiful kiddos, Marin and Deacon. Marin is 11. Deacon will turn 2 this August. And I am a former educator turned entrepreneur. I started my social media agency a little over a year ago, and I really help to empower not just women-owned brands, but I mostly am working with women-owned brands, so shining a light on their brand and business through my social media agency, as well as shining a light on organizations that are very near and dear to my heart, like the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation and Dress for Success. And I, am just a busy full-time mama who loves to relax and spend time with my family. Obviously, this is a huge part of my life. I absolutely love pageantry and have been competing in pageants for over 25 years. And this is like my comeback era for me because it has been, like you said, a road filled with a lot of bumps. And this title in particular represents so much more than just Delaware for me and the international pageant system. So I'm really, really honored to wear this sash, and I'm really looking forward to competing for Mrs. International in a few weeks.
Oh, I'm so excited. If you would for a second, I just want to make sure your face is fully in frame because you're so gorgeous. And I feel like I'm catching just the bottom half. And I'm like, can we zoom out a little bit so we can see? Let's see. Can we zoom? There it is. There's the face. Oh, y'all, she's stunning. You just, if you're watching this on YouTube, she's gorgeous, gorgeous. I mean, it's like you're kind of that beautiful that kind of makes me sick, but you're so sweet. I can't help but love you. But I'm like, oh.
All of the stylists, and I was in all of you, watching you do your magic at the state pageant. So you guys are one to talk because you are all just without makeup. And I'm over here spending an hour getting this face glammed up, okay? So.
Oh my goodness, she spent an hour for me. Thank you. I'm so honored. But I want you to talk a little bit about just your journey with the Crohn's and the colitis, because me just knowing about you and following you on Instagram and of course getting the pleasure to be in your presence, but really watching how you were so open and shared all that online. I mean, I was literally crying and you're showing your scar and just being in and out of the hospital. I mean, what was that like for you?
That was truthfully a very dark time in my life. It was very conflicting because it was teaching me a lot of lessons as I was going through a very tough time. And in the back of my mind, it was very difficult because truthfully, I knew something was serious was going on with my body. I had a couple things running through my head that it was going from, am I going to spend the rest of my life throwing up and being this sick? Or am I truly slowly dying and am I just on my way out? every day I woke up and I really tried to have a positive mindset and tell myself that I was going to beat this, whatever it was, because at the time we didn't know it was a
Mm-hmm.
severe Crohn's flare. And it was really just a time of me learning how to slow down because it's kind of like the universe and God forced me to.
Mm-hmm.
No, I had always been a people pleaser, and I was always someone that constantly put other people before myself, and I would put my job before myself. I mean, there were days I was vomiting and I still went into work and I had a swollen belly and I would teach my first graders, and I would come home and just hang on the couch. And I lost a lot of time with my daughter because she was around like six, if anywhere, I guess, like from 5, 6 when this started really
Mm-hmm.
happening. And I would come home and I'd be on the couch, and my poor husband would have to kind of pick up the slack because mommy was sick and couldn't get off the couch. And after my bouts of being sick, I would have a couple days where I was better. And so I would spring back up with my positive attitude and I would think, okay, this is it. I'm not going to get sick again. And then a couple days
Mm-hmm.
would pass and it was like Groundhog's Day. I would get sick all over again. And so when I was in the hospital, it was a lot to process because my doctor had said to me, you have been in fight and flight for 2 years, fight or flight. So she said, you have been fighting for your life. And then it ended with a very traumatic and scary hospital stay. Because when I was in the hospital, obviously I required an emergency surgery, which saved my life.
Yes.
And, the
Mm-hmm.
surgeon had said to my husband, if your wife had waited 24 hours to come to this, you know, emergency room, this would have killed her. And I do know just from researching this that it is just a miracle I am sitting in front of you today, because when you do get a bowel obstruction, it can take your life very quickly because
Mm-hmm.
often you might not know what's causing it. You might just think you have the stomach bug. Like I saw a beautiful wife on TikTok who lost her husband within 24 hours. So the fact that I did live almost a year and a half with a severe bowel obstruction is just a miracle in and of itself. And the fact that we couldn't really find what was going on was very surprising also. And it just really was a very long healing journey for me because there's so much compacted into what I went through. And it wasn't just getting the Crohn's disease diagnosis. It was that I had
Mm-hmm.
lost time with my daughter, that my husband had seen me in the most vulnerable positions because I would get so dehydrated in these flares that my body would cramp up and be stuck. And so I remember one night, and these would always happen in the middle of the night. And so my husband was sleeping, my daughter was sleeping. It was like, pitch black in our house. And I woke up not feeling well. And I couldn't even make it to the bathroom because I was so cramped from being dehydrated. And I also was so hot that like I was just literally taking off everything. And then I ended up getting sick in the bathroom. And I just remember my husband, I guess, hearing me be sick, and he came in and he had to help me clean up. Like it was a very humbling moment because as a grown woman who could not even make it to
Mm-hmm.
the bathroom and I was just literally slowly withering away, it was
Mm-hmm.
just a very humbling time. So it really taught me to be so incredibly grateful for these really small moments we tend to take for granted throughout the day. And so it was just
Mm-hmm.
a really big learning experience. I mean, I'm thankful for it because of where it has put me now, but I also would never want to go live through it again.
Wow. Well, you know what? I have to say kudos to your husband for just being that support system and stepping up to the plate and just recognizing, your needs and what was best for his family and how he could be a part of the process of making everything better, because I think a lot of times people they they let their fear hold them back, like they get scared, like they're in full panic mode.
Yes.
And so the fact that he could just like kind of, because I'm sure he was panicking inside,
Yes,
like
for sure.
swallow it down and be like, okay, my wife needs me right now. I just need
Yeah.
to focus on this, putting one foot in front of the other,
Always.
especially in a
Yes.
situation like that, because that is so terrifying. And of course, you as a mother, and I know you're thinking of yourself, but I know you as a person, and I know your first thought is your kids,
And it's
because
funny you said
I
that.
know
Yes.
how you are. Yeah.
Because I would be quite like out of the 2 years of me being severely ill, I think Marin maybe heard me throw up once. I was actually really
Mm-hmm.
good at hiding it because I didn't want to traumatize her and make it look like mommy was super sick. And even when I was in the
Mm-hmm.
hospital, she wasn't allowed to see me, but I FaceTimed her once and I had this big tube up my nose. I could barely talk. And I just kind of remember trying to make it a joke with her. And I still read her a book from my hospital bed because you're
Mm-hmm.
right. You just, it's never about you in the moment. It is. And I would feel horrible that my husband would have to run out and get me chicken noodle soup and Gatorade to replenish myself. And so
Mm-hmm.
you feel like you're a burden on the people around you when you're sick, and you feel, a lot of guilt as well.
Mm-hmm. But you know what? They love you. They adore you. I've met your daughter. I've seen your hubby. Like I know that they absolutely adore you. And your son is the cutest little thing. I just want to
Oh,
squeeze his cheeks. But
smoosh.
I mean, he's such a cutie patootie. So tell me a little bit about just like your journey with pageantry and what like brought you back to this.
Oh my goodness. Well, I did start competing in pageants when I was 14. I got one of those, like, you could be the next Miss Teen USA. And that was
Hmm.
it. I mean, I just looked at my mom and I
That's
said,
all it took.
yep. I said, I want that to be me. I want to be on a stage. I want a crown on my head. And, it was a learning journey for my mom and I. We knew nothing about
Hmm.
pageantry. I grew up with a single mom. Obviously, our financial situation, she was always working 2 or 3 jobs to support me.
Hmm.
And it just became a fun hobby for me over time. And then I got into Mrs. Pageantry back in 2017, and I was like, I really love these women. And
Hmm.
what drew me into the international system was the fact that it was so platform based, and that 50% of your score was interview. And it's funny because interview was the most terrifying aspect of competition for me when I first
Hmm.
started. But again, it's because when I first started pageantry, I was still stuck in my people pleasing era and trying to say all the things that I thought everybody else wanted me to say
Hmm.
rather than just being myself. And the first time I was ever truly and authentically just 110% myself was when I competed back in 2021 for the title
Hmm.
of Mrs. New Jersey International.
Hmm.
And I ended up walking away with overall interview, overall evening gown, and then I won Mrs. New Jersey. And that to me was just such a win because it was like when I finally realized, okay, I just have to learn who the best version of myself is, and I need to just keep working on her and just block out all the other noise. It
Yes.
was the best pageant experience. And then I was very fortunate to go to Mrs. International and I made the top 16, and that was my win. When you're competing against these amazing, accomplished women,
Hmm.
there are wins just for getting to the stage. And that's what this time around is for me. So about a year ago, after we had our son Deacon and went through another long, challenging journey with all of that, I just I was very lost because I knew I was walking away from my career that I thought I was going to retire in. Here I am starting over again with, a newborn who has a diagnosis, and was
Hmm.
was unexpected, and then had a very terrifying hospital stay, and I just knew I needed to reevaluate my life. And
Hmm.
I remember talking to Mary Molds, our director, and
Yes.
I told her, I said, I would love to return, but I just don't know when. And so last year, I just, I sat at home and I was recovering and just trying to catch my bearings, I guess. And
Hmm.
finally, last August, I just kind of looked at Justin and I was speaking to my mom and I said, I need to do something that's going to bring me back to life. And
Hmm.
I knew if
Yes.
I set a big goal for myself, like returning to Mrs. International, that it was going to hold me accountable in every area of life. I knew I was going to have to push myself in my business. I was going to have to really push myself out of my comfort zone. I knew I was going to have to prepare myself mentally, physically, emotionally. And so it's kind of like when someone knocks you down and you kind of need like that coach in your life to say, get back up. And
Hmm. Hmm.
that's what this time around has been for me. It's been showing myself that I am very capable of getting up and getting my life back together, even after being knocked down yet again. And so this time around is very special. I mean, truthfully, when I'm wearing this sash, I just feel like it's wrapping me in all of the hard work that I have been putting in the past year for this moment. And it's just reminding me that I am finally and truly aligned with my purpose and the woman that I have wanted to become.
Wow, that was a mouthful. Ah, and I'm so here for it. I just love I think it's just that I love your story, and I love the fact that you don't you have this face, you have this figure, like people will see, like when you're watching like this Mrs. International competition, when people see you hit that stage, you are like one of those holy crap beautiful people
Oh,
when you walk across the stage. But the thing is that you don't lead with that. Like once you start speaking, and when I talk to you and I speak to you, it's like you realize there's just so much more depth. It's not like this surface thing with you. So I absolutely just love that, because I think sometimes we get so caught up in the exterior that we don't go deeper. And I love the fact that this system is so platform based, because the things that I have learned from the contestants that I have had the privilege of working with, working on, just being around, the selflessness, the just the courage that it takes to do what you do,
yeah.
to be so vulnerable and walk across a stage and just do all this prep work. You guys are constantly doing public speaking engagements. You're doing outreach. You're actually out there in the community trying to make this world better, but not only for your own children, for my children, for just everyone, period. So I just hats off to all the ladies, honestly, you and
Yes,
just
they're
everyone that I've
amazing.
met through the international system. Miss Mary, the director, phenomenal,
You won't find
phenomenal
anyone
woman.
like her. I mean, we really
I
are
mean, she
amazing.
is this tiny little powerhouse. I
Yes,
mean, she
huge.
is so petite and so adorable. And I mean, but you can just tell that she has this force and she plays no games. You know?
She doesn't. No, she's like Mama Mary's the boss. It was funny. We had a
Yes.
sponsored photo shoot a few weeks ago, and
Hmm.
I was joking with the photographer. I said, "Does everyone have their sponsored sunglasses? Because Mama Mary is going to check." And he's like, "Oh my God, everyone get the sunglasses!" You know, because
Yes.
it's an honor to represent not only the international system, but the women that you're representing. And Mary
Hmm.
is, we are a representation of Mary, and so since I have known Mary, I really will always explain to her. I just texted her on Saturday after our
Hmm.
send off, and I said, I'll always keep repeating that there are no words for me to explain. Sorry, I'm getting emotional. um, to explain what Mary has done for my life. Like,
Hmm.
she has truly brought me back to life. Um, in a time that I just didn't think that I would be able to. And I say the same for Constantine and Maddie. And you
Yes.
guys just to be surrounded by people that bring you back to life and make you feel gorgeous and
Hmm.
confident. It really takes a village. And that's the other thing about this journey, is that this time it is not just about me. It is about my children, the Crohn's disease community, for any woman that has been knocked down to the floor so hard and thought, I will never get through this,
Hmm.
and you're representing so much more than just a crown and sash when you do go back to a pageant to compete, because you have a village that has supported you on your journey to get there. So you're also representing them.
Yes, absolutely. And I can speak for myself, just working with Constantine and the entire team that we have.
Love.
Everybody is so passionate about it, but the love that
Yeah.
Constantine has for just everyone involved and the care he takes, and just his whole the way he just sets up everything. He wants it beautiful when you guys
Yes.
walk in.
Yes.
We have these early mornings and he's like, I need to have coffee for our girls,
Yep.
and I need to have,
Yep.
he's just, and we need snacks for our girls. They need protein bars. I got to keep them up. Like he's like a Papa Bear. We
Yeah.
call him the daddy. Like
Yep.
he wants to take care of everybody.
He does.
And it's just, it's contagious.
It
And
is.
like I said, I've learned so much just through this entire experience. These past few years, just being a part of this has been amazing. And I'm just so curious though, how do you mentally prepare to like go into interview and to hit that stage with all those lights on you, and just, I mean, how do you prepare yourself to
Yeah.
I mean, because like you said, interview used to be really scary for you. You're literally like, there's a group of judges in front of you and you have to put your best face forward and swallow down your nervousness. How do you do it? Do you say a little mantra or something before you go in there?
Truthfully, it's so multifaceted because I number one, have learned you do need to be the best version of yourself. And when you really understand who you are and the value and the worth that you bring to a table, it becomes
Mm-hmm.
much easier to talk about yourself. I think people sometimes look at women in pageantry and just assume they love the spotlight. They're overconfident. It's
Mm-hmm.
really not about that. It's about putting forth so much effort into yourself and blocking out all the noise around you and understanding that your story is your story and no one can take it away from you. So, learning how to explain your story in not only an inspirational way, but in a way that you're portraying a message, not only to these judges, but to the audience in your,
Mm-hmm.
competition, that this is what I stand for, this is my life, and this is who I am. And obviously, we all deal with imposter syndrome at some point or another. And it
Mm-hmm.
is tough. It is tough watching these girls because everyone is bringing so much to the table. And so for
Yes.
me, I have just learned that I need to stay in my lane and I just need to focus on the end goal, which is to go to Mrs. International and be the best version of myself. Because at the end of the day, only one of us is walking home with that crown.
Mm-hmm.
But I have been living my life. I think it was when I decided I was going to compete, I just started saying, I am Mrs. International and I'm going to wake up and just do what Mrs. International would do every day. And what would Mrs. International's life look like? How would she juggle all of the things that she would be juggling? How would she look if she owned her own business? What would that look like for her? And it's kind of been a flip flop for me. So instead of waiting for me to become Mrs. International, I kind of flip flopped it and just started acting as Mrs. International in the sense that I wanted to be the best version of myself. And I know Mrs. Internationals are always the best version of themselves. And so that's kind of been my reverse psychology mindset this time around. And obviously, preparation is key. And that's what I learned through my last, state pageant of winning Mrs. New Jersey. I was prepared. I could not have been any more prepared for that moment. And so this past year has been setting myself up for success so that when I go and I leave, I know that there is nothing I could have done differently that week. And I
Mm-hmm.
put my best self forward because that's truly all you can do.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
I
Oh,
mean,
wow.
it's a lot. It's a lot, but we love it. We love the prep, and it's it's an honor to represent a system and have this beautiful crown and sash. So you also just want to make the most of your journey as you're preparing as well.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about your business because you do help mompreneurs and female entrepreneurs in your everyday life. It's what you do. And me just looking at your social media, and I've learned so many lessons about how to better promote my own business and some different steps that I need to take because I think it's no secret I'm not that great at social media.
Everyone says that. I think it's not that we're not great. We don't have the time. And that's why people need to hire
Yes,
someone like a social media manager or agency, because it's not even that we're not good at it. We don't have the time that truly
I
takes.
really don't.
Yeah, I mean, we're
Yeah.
busy with our businesses. And for me, I'm a perfect example. I mean, now that it's the countdown to the crown, I've kind of been focusing on that, but I have been strategic as well. That's why you've seen so many reels from me and talking reels,
Yes.
because I have to make what I am posting count and also make sense for my business. So you do have to be strategic. But I love what I do. I absolutely love what I do. And I appreciate you saying that my social has been helpful for you, because that truly is my intention.
Yes. I mean, what you do is just I have no words. Just speaking as
Thank you.
somebody who just attempts to at least try to post something once a week.
It's a
And with what I
lot.
do for a living, shame on me. But I mean, watching your reels and watching you go to all these different events, I'm like, how do you find all the hours in the day to do all these things? It's like you are doing so much community outreach. And the thing is you always have whenever you could.
Yes, for
How do you
sure.
find that balance, that work-life balance, and like how are you able to like split yourself up? It's almost like I kind of feel like there's low-key two of you, like you secretly have a
That'd be
twin
amazing.
and
Please
we
tell me
just
where she
don't know.
is. Please tell me where she is so I can give her a hug and thank her for all this help. Um, truthfully, I have always been a multitasker. I
Mm-hmm.
absolutely love being busy. And that's the balance. So, I knew I really wanted to be a presence as Mrs. Delaware, because Delaware is also a small state and sometimes doesn't get the love it deserves. And I really
Mm-hmm.
wanted to just go all in. When I was Mrs. New Jersey, it was still kind of COVID time. So it was kind of hard to get
Mm-hmm.
appearances and do some of the things I had truly wanted to do just because of the restrictions going on. And so this time around, I knew I was not going to waste a moment of this opportunity. And I also know through my business that I have become so in love with networking and collaborating, because every time I am at an event, whether it is for myself or a client, or I am even doing volunteer work, the connecting that you get to experience is unlike anything I've ever known. And so, I have an amazing village. I really do. And I have to say, my life would not be possible without my village, between my husband and my daughter, helping out with Deacon when I need to be somewhere, whether my mom is watching the kids, and I do double book myself. I'm very strategic in how I plan my days, but I also make days for self-care. Like typically on Sundays, we wake up and go to church, but this past Sunday, it was a busy week. So we just said, we're going to have a self-care Sunday. We're staying
Mm-hmm.
home. Because for me, I have to also manage stress. Stress is a huge trigger for inflammation in the body. And since
Mm-hmm.
Deacon and going through postpartum and all of the trials we went through him, my body was struggling. And I really knew that I had to be careful in this journey of balancing self-care because of my very busy schedule. But my
Mm-hmm.
busy schedule, again, holds me accountable, not only for my business, but for how I want to be, living my life. I want to make these connections. And a perfect example is when I recently had the honor of visiting the Crohn's and Colitis Center, which is in New Jersey, and it is just dedicated to IBD, which I think is amazing. I met a woman there who, when I first met her, I knew she worked there, and, she's been a part of the IBD center. And so I make signature healthy snack baskets for the medical staff. It's kind of what I've been doing since, I was in the hospital, and I delivered them my snack basket, and we're chatting. And she says, well, yeah, I just returned to work. And I said, oh my gosh, may I ask, why you were out? She said, oh, well, I had a traumatic brain injury and it happened last summer, and I had to learn how to walk and, talk again. And I'm just staring at her with tears in my eyes, because it's like, in this moment, in this conference room with just me and her, I had just come for a little hour and a half visit, and
Mm-hmm.
here I am meeting this woman who is blowing me away, not only with her kindness, because she's very much like you. Just like enters the room, and her spirit and smile are so bright. You can't help but feel connected to this person. And I just sat there with her, and I said, can I hug you? Like from one survivor to another, And that was just a random Tuesday. And now we follow each other on Instagram. She has been such a supporter since I've met her. We even ran into each other at a restaurant when we went out to eat. And you just don't realize the connections you get to build through all of these experiences. And so, although my schedule is busy, it's so incredibly fulfilling that as long as I can make sure I'm implementing daily self-care, it's
Mm-hmm.
so incredibly worth it to me, because that was one small situation just from one appearance, and it changed my life meeting her. She was just so inspirational.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I mean, we have been blessed to come in contact with some pretty incredible women, I have to
For
say.
sure.
I've
It's
met some
crazy.
extremely resilient, and
Oh,
it seems like, the platforms for the contestants, especially for Mrs. International, they're so near and dear to you
oh,
guys' hearts.
yes.
Your platforms are so like genuine and sincere, and like everyone that I have met that has, created these platforms or created nonprofits, like they truly come from a place of goodness,
Right.
of
Yes.
trying to like create change or bring awareness to certain things that just, and it blows my mind. I remember I always make a joke. I'm like, whenever I leave Mrs. International, I kind of feel like a slug. I'm like, I need to do something to help like change, to create change, because I've met
You
these
are. You're
incredible women
making.
who are doing just such phenomenal
Oh,
things for the world. And it just blows my mind. And for you to like, even though you go through all these like health challenges, and you recognize when you need to like slow down and take a minute. Like you can say,
Right.
okay, look,
For sure.
this Sunday has to be self care Sunday because I need to make sure that I am taking care of me. Because if I don't take care of me, I'm not going to be at my best
There's
when I
nothing else.
compete. I'm not going
Yep.
to be at my best trying to take care of my family. So I love that you know when to take a step back
Yes.
and
And I
that
think,
you feel
yes.
it.
Yeah. I mean, Crohn's taught me I love it. One of the girls I think we're competing with, right? Stephanie, I know that her platform is, selfishly speaking. And I, relate to that because
Hmm.
many people will look at you and maybe say you're living a selfish life, but it's not selfish. I think our society has turned us with our self-care into, oh, that's
Right.
selfish. It's not, because what I learned
Mm-mm.
is when I was sick, if I am not taking care of myself, I'm not a good mom. I'm not present as a mom. I'm not good at my job. When I was a teacher, it was so hard for me to teach, and I also wasn't a great wife because I wasn't able to spend time with my husband. When my husband and I go on dates and we spend every night together, Mara knows at 8 o'clock, it's bedtime, it's mommy, daddy time. You
Hmm.
know,
Hmm.
we're very intentional because then we're better parents together. And our marriage, I mean, we've been together 19 years. Our marriage is the strongest it has ever been because we take the time to invest in our marriage and put it first. And that makes us better parents and it helps us run a really sufficient household. And so you have to know when to practice self care because burnout is a real thing. And for me, burnout almost cost me my life. So I truly have no choice now but to practice self care.
Absolutely. And I love that you guys are so intentional about your relationship and your love for each other and the way that you wake up every day and choose each other
Yeah.
and that you do have that set time. Like, this is our time to make sure we're connecting and cultivating our relationship because all of us as parents, our end goal is to raise our children to be the best version of themselves
Right.
so that we can push them out of the nest and go into the world.
Yeah.
And then once the children are out the door, it
It's
is
just
you and
you and
hubby.
right.
And
That's
you don't
it.
want to look over and go, who are you?
Yeah, right. No, I mean, it's funny, and I think it's all also with who you're surrounding yourself with. I used to
Hmm.
kind of surround myself with a crowd that spoke, listen, we all have our little tiffs with our significant others. That's very normal. But
Hmm.
I really never enjoyed being around women who like really tore down their husbands because it was confusing for me because I'm like, well, I'm kind of obsessed with mine. So it's like, is this normal? Like, I mean, but my husband is an amazing person, and it's exactly who was written for me to be in my
Hmm.
life. God knew what he was doing when he chose us for one another. And
Hmm.
it is something we have to work at. It has not been perfect for 19 years. We have had our ups and downs, and we have been through many more probably trials and challenges than we have the good times. And I'm being
Hmm.
honest when I say that because my husband lost his brother unexpectedly back in 2010. He was laid off for a long time. I mean, we
Hmm.
had like no money together. We lived in the smallest apartment. We have been through some rough patches, and
Hmm.
it really can either make or break you as a couple. And I'm just very thankful that even though the universe has thrown so much our way, that it has continued to just build our relationship and our marriage.
And look at that, 19 years, two
19.
gorgeous children. Oh my goodness. Oh my
Yes,
goodness. Just, it's
crazy.
been, your journey has been really honestly just something else. And the fact that you came out on the other side of it with this kind of a positive attitude. But I think attitude is so important when you're battling something
Yes,
because it makes such a huge difference. I
it really
remember
does.
when my mother-in-law was going through like breast cancer treatment. It's just, we really all wanted to make sure that she was positive and
Mhm.
happy. And she's such an upbeat and exciting person
Right.
anyway. She's such a social butterfly. But truly, I remember everyone just saying, her positive attitude is really also what helped,
Yes.
helped her treatment.
Yes, it does.
It,
You don't realize it, but yes, a positive
yeah.
attitude helps. And I think that's what my Crohn's journey actually helped me in the time of Deacon and even more
Hmm.
recently. Deacon was tough for me because
Hmm.
there was so much going on. And at that point, it was like trying to figure out his exact diagnosis, but it was
Hmm.
also, trying we know our children and we know our own bodies. And so for
Yes.
me, what I've learned through this entire experience is not only do I know my children better than anyone else and my own body, but I also need to trust my gut instinct because 99.9% of the time I am right as a mom. And I think
Hmm.
that's, why we have that mother's intuition. And I mean, it really has helped me because now when I get into a point of where there's an obstacle in my way, now I sit back and instead of having like some nervous breakdown and panic attack, the first thing I ask myself is, what is this trying to teach me right now? And a perfect example is in the beginning of this year, we were actually getting ready to move. We want to move to a home that's just a little bit bigger now. We're definitely maxed out on our space right now. And, so we were like, okay, we got approved for the mortgage. We're all excited. We start looking for homes in an area that we had loved for years. And I was like,
Hmm.
this is it. This is the area we have to live. We look for homes. We list our house. It sells within 2 days. We're getting ready to sign the paperwork, and my husband hurts himself at work, and he tore his bicep tendon, and he was going to need emergency surgery. So we had to pull our house off the market because obviously that was not the right time. But it's
Right.
funny because that happened in the fall, and as this year has gone on, we decided we just really didn't want that area anymore.
Hmm.
What we were looking for just never was happening anyway. We didn't
Hmm.
like the homes we were seeing, and we've kind of totally changed direction to where we
Hmm.
want to move. And I just think that sometimes we get very stuck on, we have a goal and we need to get there, but the universe has a very funny way of making sure that those goals or manifestations or whatever it is you call them happen for you, but it's not going to happen always in the way that you expect it to. And sometimes the universe is protecting us from things.
Yes.
Because I said to my husband, oh my gosh, if we had moved and you got hurt and then we were stuck in this neighborhood that now we've decided, it ends up, it's very congested with traffic, like it would have put us further away from our jobs, like it just
Mm.
wouldn't have worked. So sometimes I think what I've learned now is to just be present and enjoy it. I got a lot of time with my husband. He ended up being home because he was out,
Hmm.
to heal, and we really enjoyed each other's company. He was very helpful during the day when he could be, when he was kind of at that, healing end. And you just never know why these things are happening. But I think it's very helpful to go into it now, understanding, okay, what is this trying to teach me? And what did I learn from this situation? And now how can I just move forward in a positive manner?
Yes, because I think a lot of times when we get thrown a curveball,
Right.
we panic. We
Yes.
panic before we consider how to pivot. It's like
Right.
that mantra right there, what is this trying to teach me, is
Right.
a way to kind of get you out of that panic mode
Yes.
so you can see bigger picture. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
for
Because sometimes you
sure.
can't see the forest for the trees.
Yes.
So it's one of those situations where it kind of
Yes.
snaps you back into it.
It
And
does.
it's like, a lot of cases it's like, hey, what's meant to be will be. And that
Right.
wasn't meant to be. And it turns out, hey, maybe that wasn't the best decision anyway, you
Exactly.
know?
That something better is there for you. And what I keep learning through all of this positive mindset and manifestation is that your goals will happen, but you cannot continue to worry about the how or the why because that affects your energy. And I think that's my biggest thing is I have observed when I get stuck in a negative energy and I have those, pity party days for myself, it
Hmm.
does seem like everything kind of continues to go wrong. But when I choose to wake up and say, this is who I am, this is how my life is going to be, even if it's not there yet. And when I act as if my life is already, you know, just filled with all of the things that I want, I'm more positive, and then more
Hmm.
positive things start to happen. So it's definitely a habit you need to work on, but once you're able to really get into this type of mindset, it's life changing.
Absolutely. I myself too, just being a business owner and a mom and all these things and just like stress, I have to wake up like in the morning when I'm getting ready to go to the gym. I in my head on my way, I'm saying like three things that I'm grateful
Yeah.
for. Like
Yeah.
I woke up with a roof over my head,
Right.
I'm going to the gym with all these wonderful ladies that I love, and then, I'm going to come home and see my family, or I have
Yeah.
my
I
three
love
little
that.
doggies that I love so much. Like
I love
I
that.
have to like every day you need to remind yourself of the
Give
things
yourself
that
a
you.
pep talk.
Yes, you have to remind yourself of all these amazing things in your life, because if you get caught up in all the things you don't have, man, it clouds what you have.
It does, because
It,
it's
it
funny.
really
I,
does.
I literally was doing laundry the other day and I was like, ugh. I was like, I can't stand laundry. And I was like, Sarah, there was a time you were in the hospital and you were craving to be home doing, laundry. So I flipped it real quick and I said, well, I get to do laundry. And then I took a second, and it's funny, sometimes we just have those moments in life where we just kind of stop and you're like, I do want to remember this moment forever. And I
Mm-hmm.
heard Deacon and Marin giggling in the living room. I heard Justin cooking. So I heard the stove. And as I'm hearing all these things going on and I'm doing wash, I kind of just sat and I smiled and I was like, I'm really like the richest girl in the world, because there are
Mm-hmm.
so many people that would love to be in a beautiful home with a loving husband, with two beautiful, healthy children. And I have all that. So
Mm-hmm.
it really is a great exercise to practice that, even when you do have those moments where you're frustrated, to kind of flip it around and turn it into positive, even when you don't feel like it. It's just helpful for you and it just kind of
Mm-hmm.
helps your day go better.
Absolutely does. And that is that, my darling. You guys, I mean, hello. That's what I'm saying about her. Like, if you
Oh,
guys are watching this on YouTube, you see the face, but you've heard her words and you've really seen her personality and who she is and what Sarah is about and what she brings to the table, just as not only as a wife, a mother, a mom, but honestly, just as a human being. And just as an amazing pillar of her community and just an amazing part of the international pageant system. I absolutely love and adore you. I'm so proud of you and everything you've overcome to get to this point. I am rooting for you, which you already know that. So I just want to say a huge thank you so much for doing this.
thank
And
you.
I'm so grateful. And I can't wait to see you hit that stage, my darling, for
Oh,
Mrs.
I can't wait.
International.
I can't wait. And thank you so much, Chantel, for just taking the time to, meet with me. You're beautiful. And I love that you have a podcast that you just share amazing stories. And it truly, the honor was all mine. So thank you.
Oh, sending you so much hugs and love from Texas. And I will see you soon, my darling. Bye
All right.
bye.
Bye.